What if I was to make a claim that the biblical Nephilim are real, and I know what they are? First of all, let's go read about what the Nephilim are. This is in Genesis, right in the beginning. This actually occurs between creation and the flood. It is getting near the flood as the world is getting too crazy. Let's read about the Nephilim right here. Chapter 6. This is right after the earth has been filled with people. The wickedness of humankind. When people began to multiply on the face of the ground, and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that they were fair, and they took wives for themselves of all that they chose. Then the Lord God said, My spirit shall not abide in mortals forever, for they are flesh. Their days shall be 120 years. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God went into the daughters of humans, who bore children to them. These were the heroes that were of old, warriors of renown. The Lord saw that the wickedness of humankind was great in the earth, and that every inclination of the thoughts of their hearts was only evil continually. And the Lord was sorry that he had made humankind on the earth, and it grieved him to his heart. So the Lord said, I will blot out from the earth the human beings I have created, people together with animals and creeping things and birds of the air, for I am sorry that I have made them. Okay, there we have it. Nephilim are part of that decay. What is going on there? The Nephilim. All right. This is going to be a fun one. And the reason I'm doing this video is because I had a kind of an exchange with somebody on another channel, and I was talking about the templates, and he really came at me about the templates not existing in Genesis. And of course, you know it is. And I was citing some examples how you can even see similarities, or how it descended from the Babylonian creation myth, the Enuma Elish. And he took time actually to go look. I could tell because he came back and posted some things about it. And of course, he was wrong about, he's not interpreting it. He's treating them as literal. And he's telling me that, Genesis is the true one because it tells how creation is. And you're like, whoa, this is a biblical literalist right here. That this is like the worst kind, actually, not interpreting anything. And the Jews will tell you that Genesis is not literal. For people downstream to take it that way is just the epitome of not trying to figure things out. And that gets kind of frustrating when people come at you aggressively with confidence. And you're like, wow, they have such a sliver. They're very confident in what they have, but they have very little. They just don't know very much. Anyway, he came back and said, no, it's not even the same. There's gods and all that kind of stuff. These are not the same stories at all. And I'm trying to tell him it's conceptual reading. You can even go to Enoch, and I cited an example in Enoch of how there are things coming in and having sex with the daughters of men, and that the Bible is doing that as well, and that that's not what happened in the Babylonian myth, but instead what they're doing in the Babylonian myth, they still have the same mechanism going on, except that they have early gods taking over that become too raucous. So there's still an element there that if we look at them conceptually, we begin to see the same. His argument was that I was not understanding it all because they don't even sound the same. What do we have? We have a literalist that can't understand the conceptual idea, that is looking at the material at face value and looking at it and not understanding how to read it conceptually. So it's difficult to find our way in through the outside. That's what I did. It took me years of mental experimentation. But there's a template. If we identify what the template is, then we're going to go look at some things where they appear on the template. It'll come right online exactly what the Nephilim are. My name is Dan Paulson. Welcome to the channel. Let's go ahead and get started on that. Now, I have to set this up. There is a very specific process I am going to use. I'm not going to wander all over the place. This story, as far as I'm concerned, plays out in my psyche. I turn it inward, and these story parts are magical sounding components, but it's holding something analogous verbiage for a storytelling culture that actually means something different in my psyche. But it's going to repetitively show up in other material that we can line up side by side and analyze what it is. And that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to look at two things that are going to be easy to line up. The Babylonian work is a little harder to see, but I'll just talk you through it. But all of it plays out in the psyche. All of these parts do. They are not literal. They're not about out in space, supernatural, anything like that. They're natural. They're self-healing for us to turn and look into our own souls. That's hard to do. So, not many people do it. That's in the material as well. Okay, first, what I want to say in an overview, there's two templates. And what we're going to do is work with one template right now. The first template is creation. And I will tell you that the creation template is based on stages of a human life. From birth, through childhood, through getting hurt, through having experiences, for judging life, for things decaying, getting worse, severely getting bad, us losing our good qualities and good characteristics until we don't have control of our lives anymore. Our minds are so raucous we can't sit down and relax. That is when the world gets raucous right there. Then what's going to happen is monomyths pick up. We're not going to go that far in this video. I have actually covered that stage in a previous video, and I will put a link to it below. But for right now, we're just going to look at one component part of that, and that is where the Nephilim are. This is early on in creation stories, or early on in a standalone monomyth that doesn't have a creation story there, but still needs to set up what the story is going to be about. These are puzzles. Think of it. These guys are doing parable, metaphor. They are writing mythologies. They are speaking in, what do we have, fables, teaching lessons, all kinds of these cryptic manners. Religion, boy, it's another layer altogether. It's cryptic. There's something in here. But the template, if we identify human life steps, we've got the template. Let's do that. It starts this way. All right, this is just a basic template. We are born. We arrive with certain qualities, but we're not yet self-aware. It takes several years of experience before we are actually self-aware and having fun. We grow till we are happy and self-aware. We have not yet judged life. That would equate to being naked, unashamed, and happy in the Garden of Eden. We're not covered with anything. We begin to experience the physical and we judge life and become it. That's first sin right there. Repeated pain cycles as we leave issues unresolved. Continual pain in childbirth. We turn from positive outlook to a more negative in many areas. The Cain and Abel separation. This compounds as life continues through growing up. We begin to have our life experiences. We experience life continuously based on our perceptions. We become more and more of our life experiences. If we can't interact with that somehow and stop it, we continue to move along paths that we started with. And they continue to grow bigger and more intense as we accumulate more of it in life. At some point, we have lost our innocent qualities, the love, trust, caring, compassion, etc. We just don't. All those little childhood things that we just looked at with innocence, we're now like, oh my God, get away from that. We have changed. We live as a mental and physical wreck. That is what I'm going to suggest the basic template is. Again, it took a long time from the outside and looking at a lot of things to crawl into that. Eventually, when you see what's happening, you can begin to process it. They take that template right there. That's what every human being in the world would want to know if they're trying to interact with their life and want to know how they came about. That is the template right there that is the creation template that emerges. When you see similarities in antiquity, that's why. They're all built on that template. And, there's some have more detail than others. There's some variations in there. But once you learn to process them, they become, it's like you can read it. It's a language that you can read. And you can self-teach yourself to do that by playing it out in the psyche. But This is quicker. So what they do then is they take these steps in life and say, create a story on this. Obscure it. People can do this. Here's the template. Go do this. Think of it. Here's how you exist in the universe. Here's how life unfolds no matter where you live on the planet. Go figure it out. People aren't going to do it, and they still are very tribal. They're competitive. They're emerging as a civilization. Another thing, a number of things need to happen for life to be okay. And the emergence of religions is certainly one of them. You can see that it has a great control impact over a population. At the same time, it's nesting this template. That's what it's built upon. And you can change that up. You can use any analogous verbiage that you want to. It has to fit into a mental hierarchy. That's another tricky part of it. There's a higher being, there's a consciousness, there's a subconscious, there's the characteristics that we have stored away, there's the flow in life, and then those are further sectioned up as to different characteristics and different qualities or different parts of us at different times in life. We are all of the parts of the stories. The more complicated they get, they're just making a bigger story. You can have one enemy inside, you can have 1,000,000 enemies that you have to defeat. Most of us have 1,000,000. You can either have a flood or you can go have a purging and then, okay, what's next? Go do it again, which is more likely. The monomyths are going to be repetitive. Let's start bringing the other parts into it now. We got it all set up. Let's read about the Nephilim one more time again. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump to the first part of the Enuma Elish. And I'll tell you the Enuma Elish is going to sound different, but I'll talk through and interpret it as I read it. There's going to be a section up front in the first tablet that we get to that is actually going to cover from creation all the way up to where the point where the world is raucous in the same way that Genesis works. It's going to be all the way up to the point where the world is raucous and we want to destroy this and start over again. It won't sound the same. It's going to play out in the psyche. All right, again, here is the Nephilim. I want to read this first part. It's important. When people began to multiply on the face of the ground, and daughters were born to them. Daughters were born to them. The sons of God saw that they were fair, and they took wives for themselves of all that they chose. The sons of God. That's an interesting thing. Then the Lord said, My spirit shall not abide in mortals forever, for they are flesh, and their days shall be 120 years. I think we should just skip that. What's the next one? The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God went into the daughters of the humans, who bore children to them. These were the heroes that were of old, warriors of renown. You know, that's the most confusing thing. It sounds like sons of God. God's not happy about it, but they're heroes of renown. But what do? They come down and they have sex with the fine daughters of men and create, and then not long after this, we've got an issue. All right, let's move right to the Enuma Elish and see what emerges from there. Tablet 1. At a time when even the glories above had yet to be named, and unuttered was the word for the world which lay beneath, it was then that the first being Apsu, who was their source, and the progenitor Tiamat, the mother who gave birth to all, intermingled their waters, producing neither field nor marsh. At a time when no divine beings had yet come into existence, there were no names to be spoken and no fates pronounced. But the gods were given birth within those intermixing waves. The first were Lamu and Lahamu. Their names were spoken. Okay, let's talk about that for a little bit. This is creation, and it's a different version. This is about us. Again, it's not trying to claim that it is the creation of the universe and planet Earth. It is a template that talks about us being born and that we're separate, where we have a higher self and a lower self, a conscious, our mind and our physical, our heart, our soul, the way we feel, the way we think, are separated. And intermingling the waters, neither producing field nor marsh. We haven't created a life experience yet on the physical world, field or marshes of the physical world. No divine beings had yet come into existence. We are not yet self-aware. There were no names to be spoken and no fates pronounced. No names means that we have not decided on the quality of anything in life yet. We have not judged it. We have not begun to decide the quality of life. We're still too young. No fates pronounced. We are not becoming ourselves yet through our life experiences. But the gods were given birth within those intermixing waves. The first were Lamu and Lahamu. Their names were spoken. That's Adam and Eve. Lamu, Lahamu, male and female versions of the same name. They were spoken. That is like Adam and Eve, happy in the beginning in the garden. That is the same thing. Conceptually. I have to say conceptually. You read them side by side and go, these are different. They aren't the same. You read them conceptually, and what you begin to realize is, if this is me coming into being, this is myself, this is my conscious and my subconscious, my capacity to be self-aware, my capacity to begin having life experiences and having who and what I am and my continued life experience emerge in the quality of the nature of everything that is left in place that is not interacted with, good or bad. Okay, the first were Lamu and Lahamu, that's our Adam and Eve. Their names were spoken. But once they had fully grown and become mature of form, then were born Anshar and Kishar, and they outshone them, and so many days passed by, and many years were counted. Their first son was Anu, being as great as any of his forebears, and Anshar caused his son Anu to become just like himself. From Anu came Nudimmud, who was also his spitting image, and Nudimmud proved to be even greater than his forebears, profoundly wise and full of insight, with strength in his limbs, more infused with might than even his grandfather Anshar. What they're doing right here is building a story in a culture that tells stories. It's a very big teaching story. But what they're doing is creating parts of us. First Lamu and Lahamu, and then time goes by. You see that? That's going to be an element. Time goes by, and then something else emerges. We're becoming something different. And then we're splitting up and becoming good selves and bad selves. We have different qualities that are coming about here in the same way that we would become Adam and Eve, then leave the garden, then become having or have offspring, begin to divide. So the division is happening right here, that who and what we are going to become is happening very rapidly. We've moved right into the point where in the Bible we would be having the lineage, Adam's descendants happening. That's what's happening right here. The descendants are happening. And those, like in the Bible, are going to be parts of us. They're going to represent our later selves, our more developed selves that are going awry. Moving to the next page, we have to back up. And Nudimmud proved to be even greater than his forebears, profoundly wise and full of insight, with strength in his limbs, more infused with might than even his grandfather Anshar, with none among the gods who could be considered his equal. So what's happening is gods are being created in our psyche. The reason that is, I will tell you, the gods are going to be destroyed later. So it's okay. In the Bible, what we're going to find is humans are created, they go bad and must be destroyed. In this creation myth, what we're going to have is gods are there in the beginning because it was okay to tell that kind of a story to the Babylonians. So the gods were in the beginning, which represents those earlier part of us. And the reason they're given God status is because we don't have control over them. They run our lives. They take over. They have power. They might get put away, but when they want to come out, they come out, and there's nothing we can do. Those are what have to be destroyed and replaced by humans. So the gods that are coming about right now represent our qualities, our characteristics, not just the bad ones, but the good ones as well. Okay, picture this as we move along. We are now coming about. We're younger, but we're moving on into our other selves that become older, and we kind of start losing control of things. Look back and just see if this sounds like it could fit anywhere with your life. With none among the gods who could be considered as equal. He's going to show up later and become an important part. That's why they established that now. That generation of gods would gather together for wild revels. So all those people that were created in the beginning, they're called gods. They come around for wild revels. That's our earlier self. We're now coming around and partying in our heads. So they proved bothersome to Tiamat. Their hullabaloo echoed All this commotion proved unsettling to Tiamat's inner being. Tiamat is our inner being. That is who our that is who we become. And she was bothered by all of their activity within Anderuna. That's the meeting place of the gods. This is your mind. This is your space. This is your inner being. She was bothered by all of their activity within Anderuna. Do you ever sit there and go, oh my God, my head won't shut up. Why won't this quit? This is it right here. All this commotion proved unsettling to Tiamat's inner being, and she was bothered by all of their activity within Anderuna. There was nothing Apsu could do to mitigate their carousing. Yeah, we can't talk to ourselves and make it stop. But there was nothing Tiamat would say to quiet them down. So our inner being doesn't have power over them. That's not who can control them. And no matter how troublesome their conduct became to her, regardless of how rowdy things were, she just put up with it. This kept up until divine Apsu, the source of the mighty gods, summoned to him and spoke to his officer Mumu, saying, "Hear me, Mumu, my trusted officer who I can rely upon." Okay, these are parts of us that are getting tired of our previous self. We are now invoking Mumu, a different being. Mumu here is the establishment of another part of who and what we are. This is, boy, it's going to get thick. I got to be careful. These two people are actually going to become Moses and Aaron in a later story. But right now, Mumu is being talked to and being invoked. And what seems to emerge with consistency in these stories with Apsu, the source, that is our consciousness, as we are sitting here at this point in time in life going, oh my God, I need to do something. Tiamat is the one going, yeah, I got everything shoved in me. The gods are all of the things that our life experiences that are acting out. Mumu is the part of us that is going to affect the changes, or at least in this story, we're going to modify that a little bit. But if we were to go to Exodus, what we would find this structure right here, where Apsu and Mumu would be Moses and Aaron. And he's talking to him and saying, come on, Mumu, with my trusted officer who I can rely upon. Come with me and together we will go speak to Tiamat. You're starting to have an internal, we're looking inside. We need to start trying to figure out what we're going to do. We need to resolve this cacophony we have in our heads. Thus, they went together and seated themselves before Tiamat, and they conversed with her about their children, the gods. So Apsu knows it was he and Tiamat that created them. These are our children. These are our offspring. This is who and what we are and what we have become. Apsu raised his voice to be heard, speaking heartily to Tiamat. I have been very troubled by the manner of their conduct, so that I cannot relax during the day nor sleep well at night. This is us. I cannot relax during the day nor sleep well at night. We have become this frazzled mess. Therefore, I shall bring it to a halt and get rid of them all. Then silence shall reign, and thus we might get some sleep. Okay, do you recognize we just moved into a flood story? But again, we're doing this conceptually. You cannot look at this and say, well, those people, that just sounds too fake. There aren't a bunch of gods. Therefore, that version can't be true. This version over here is true. Let's go and take a look and see how all they've done is change up some elements, and they haven't really changed up very much at all. And it's pretty easy to see that. But right there, what we have, that's our creation. That is us. We come about. We come into being. It branches out. It gets worse. Our earlier qualities, who and what we are, we lose them. Let's take a look at the template for a second. Where are we on that? Okay, there we were. We were born. We arrive with certain differing qualities, but are not self-aware. It didn't cover that there, but we do. We come with certain personality types and things like that we don't, that are not going to be part of our life influence that determine, our extroversion, introversion, that kind of stuff. We grow till we're happy and self-aware, no judge to life. That was our Lamu and Lahamu. We begin to experience the physical and we judge and become it. Repeated pain cycles as we leave issues unresolved. We've got that raucousness going on inside. We can't get any peace in the Enuma Elish. We turn from a positive outlook to a more negative in areas. We become those other qualities that are not good qualities, the people. If we were to go through the whole story, we would see that there's an entire emergence of characters that come about, and these will emerge as the part that you have to defeat. For now, I'll just throw that in there. This compounds as life continues through growing up. Yep, we're continuing to emerge. We experience life continually based on our perceptions. We have now begun to name things and have those experiences. They grow bigger and more intense as we accumulate more of it. Yep, it's become too raucous. We've lost our innocent qualities, love, trust, caring, compassion, and all of that stuff. It doesn't really cover that in there that much. We are out of control. We live as a mental and physical wreck. Yeah, that's how we feel. And we want to start this life over. We have decided we want to destroy all of that. Did you see all of that happen right there? But again, it's a conceptual thing on that template that would fit. Let's read this again. We have to pull this onto the template. It's going to fit there as well. Chapter 6, the wickedness of humankind. When people began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that they were fair, and they took wives for themselves of all that they chose. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God went into the daughters of humans, who bore children to them. These were the heroes that were of old, the warriors of renown. Okay, so somehow God had sons that went and took human fair wives and had sex with them and had offspring with them. Interesting. Is that a real story? Can it make sense? Okay, let's read something from Enoch right here. Enoch is going to be a little bit different. Let's just jump right to the point. It is also in chapter 6, if we look. However, the chapters leading up to it are incredibly short. Enoch does not have a creation story in there. Enoch is a Jewish story. It is downstream from Jewish creation. So it is not going to have a creation story, but it's going to be a monomyth that is standalone. So there's some things up front that are going to set up how the story works anyway. They're going to have cause and effect and cycles and things like that happening. The calling in the beginning, somebody that's standing upright and all of that. But if we jump through real quickly and go right to chapter 6, what does it say right here? And it came to pass, when the children of men had multiplied, that in those days were born to them beautiful and fair daughters. And the angels, the sons of heaven, saw and lusted after them, and said to one another, Come, let us choose wives from among the children of men, and have children with them. And Semjaza, who was their leader, said to them, I fear you will not agree to do this deed, and I alone shall have to pay the penalty of this great sin. And they all answered him and said, Let us swear an oath and all bind ourselves by mutual curses, so that we will not abandon this plan, but to do this thing. Then they all swore together and bound themselves by mutual curses. And they were in all 200 who descended in the days of Jared in the summit of Mount Hermon. And they called it Mount Hermon, because they had sworn and bound themselves by mutual curses on that act. All right, straight interpretation. If this was to go out into the psyche, what is happening right here is that we have good qualities, good characteristics. And in Hebrew work, the offspring that we have, once we turn it inward, that we still have viable offspring. However, the offspring are no longer physical children. What they are the memories and the emotional states of our experiences, who and what we have become. And this becomes a structure. Our entire being becomes something. So if we go back and look at the Enuma Elish real quick, Tiamat, our inner being, was bothered by all the activity with an Andaruna. Andaruna is a meeting place of the gods. It's where everybody gets together. That's it up here. Andaruna is the place where all of your thoughts and your peace is, or the raucousness is. The activity in Andaruna, there was nothing that they could do to mitigate the carousing. If we go back right here, the Mount Hermon is going to be an analogous representation of the same thing. It's a mountain. It's a structure. It's a tower. It could be a number of things. It could be a field. It could be your land. It could be your kingdom. It could be your vineyard. Any of those can be analogous representations for the idea of something in here that this space right here has become unusable to you in life and you want it back. That's it right there. And all of these are going to represent that same thing. And what is the sex with the offspring? Jewish material. Yeah, these are our qualities and characteristics, the children. The good qualities when we're young is our love, is our joy, is our peace, is our happiness. And something has come in from a higher realm somewhere. We're not paying attention in life at that time. We are allowing life to unfold without managing it properly. We are becoming products of our life experiences. And that's what they're referring to here, is that those good qualities that we had to begin with, we're now looking at life and seeing things and hearing things. And we've gone from this open-minded, bright-eyed, I want to see the world person to, I don't like them, I'm afraid of them, I don't like that, I'm ashamed of this, I hate that. We have become something different. That is what is being represented by this story, that our good qualities and good characteristics have been taken over by something else who are now swearing a pact. They're building a story here that tells us about our early life and how difficult it is and how full of ourselves we are early on. And we get to a point later where we go, oh my God, what have I done? I'm going to die. How do I save my life? Okay, do you see that in those two right there? Let's go back and look at Genesis one more time. When people began to multiply in the face of the ground and daughters were born to them. That's us coming about and developing and becoming more multifaceted. And daughters were born to them. These are our offspring. This is our qualities. This is as we grow and develop, the things we learn and the things that we become. And the sons of God saw that they were fair. We start out good, happy. Everything is good. Everything is on the up and up. And they took wives for themselves of all that they chose. So the sons of God, somehow something that is a higher being. Everybody who says that Christianity is a monotheism, you know what? It's not. They say there are not multiple gods, and then they go ahead and fill the place up with a bunch of other deities that are doing the same things that multiple gods would be doing anyway. All right, I'll get off that rant. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, so the Nephilim are being used to represent just some kind of bad qualities, bad characteristics. And also afterward, they're going to be around for all time. The Nephilim will always be here. When the sons of God went into the daughters of humans. All right, this one's easy, and it's a great place to play with the analogs. These things going into the daughters of humans, we have good qualities. We have a bad experience. That good quality is no longer there. The trust was beautiful. Something happened. I now lost that trust. This was something that went into the daughter of humans, representative. It's not real. What it means is that I had a physical experience, that as a result of that experience, I now have something inside of me that is going to be a part of my life and my existence. And presumably, in this material, it's going to be something that's derogatory to me that's going to continue to act out. And that is what is happening as a part of my world getting raucous. Okay. That's it. That's how they work. The Nephilim are common. They're being used in other places. They're something that continually haunts you. But their characteristics, their qualities. If you go to Jason and the Argonauts and watch that movie or just read it, there's a point where Phineas, who represents your old self, the seer, this was the person that could see, that knew better, has now been punished. You can no longer move ahead. You've lost the qualities. And you're being punished routinely every day when you're trying to eat, when you're trying to consume, when you're trying to live. These creatures that have been sent to come down and just harass you and keep your food from... you can't, it's no good. The creatures have to be stopped. But the same thing is happening. What they're doing right here with the Nephilim is the same thing the Greeks are doing there. The stories are representing something that holds out in the psyche that for some reason today people want to take them literally. They can't understand that it's a lesson. It's a personal inward turning lesson. However, it is in all fairness, written in such a way, that analogous carrying case. What would what would it be called? The ark, carried by many, seen in by very few. We're looking inside of it right here, while people are carrying it, saying something like, "What did I just got a message from while I was doing this video? This came up. It was the guy who I was having a talk with, and I told him, yeah, it's just a downstream template. And he replied, all you found was a story, that's it. An illogical story that's nothing like the Genesis story. Some gods getting created out of chaos waters, and then a small god using the corpse of one of them to create the world is nothing like the Genesis story. If you can't see that, then I suspect that you never actually read Genesis." All right, well, there you have it. That's this is what happens. Many are standing outside the narrow gate, where the paths are many that lead to destruction. Very few turn inward. You grab any material and turn inward, you find the path, and you become buddies. I'm from Hinduism, I'm from Buddhism, I'm from Taoism, I'm from Judaism, I'm from Christianity, I'm from Islam, but we all found that inner path. We're brothers and sisters. We found the real deal. If we don't, we're carrying something that allows us to continue to act like the animals that we're emerging from. And that's how I see it. Anyway, okay, hope this video was fun. It was for me, and I left his name out. I'm going to actually refer him. I'm just going to tell him, hey, I made a video for you. Go ahead and see it. You can't explain it very quickly, and people that don't want to see it, they're going to dismiss it. You can't see it. It's a conceptual reading. Absolutely. Think of what they're doing in their day and their time. Aesop's fables, tons of them. They're stories that are meant to be worked out in a culture that's their media. Imagine your day-to-day activities with no media. No power, no electricity. You're talking or you're thinking. That's it. That's what you have. What are these stories? They're much bigger than we give them credit for. But if you, there's something in there. If you look at enough of them, you start seeing the patterns, and that's what I went after. It's finding the patterns and realizing that a lot of the material is about me healing myself, and finally making a transition that's, why don't I just try to treat every bit of it exactly the same way? And gradually this is what emerges. Okay, let's take one more look at the creation template, and this is not complete, but if we look down at step number 9, we have lost our innocent qualities, our love, trust, caring, compassion, etc. And we live as a mental wreck and a physical wreck. We want to start this life over. We want a rebirth. You see it there, and no matter whether we found that in the Enuma Elish, the Babylonian creation myth, nested in there, or in Genesis, or in Enoch, we find the same nested teaching in here. It's about us. All right. Hope it was fun and interesting. Feel free to post any comments or questions below, and love one another. I'll see you in the next video.